started Gumball in '99, and it was really a result of my own personal interests and backgrounds, really, combination of passions and academic careers that I'd had. I'd spent my teenage years sort of skateboarding and doing every sport possible, and that progressed into racing cars, which I did sort of semi-professionally for about 10 years. And at the same time as that, I did a fashion degree and then followed by a law degree, and found that at the end of that law degree, I'd got friends that were pro skateboarders to famous fashion designers, and through that crowd, I'd met a lot of musicians and actors, and through the racing world, I'd met a lot of billionaires and people that owned the race teams and sponsored the race teams that I was driving for. So Gumball for me was about putting all those people in the same room together and trying to create a brand, an event, and a greater thinking behind it to create a brand that they could all enjoy. In 2008, it's our 10th anniversary year, and we're basically looking at finishing the rally in China. So I've just come back from a 2-week recce, driving from Shanghai to Beijing. In my last year of studying, I tried to buy a Formula One team, which, as incredulous as that sounds, I basically got the financial backing from one of the guys that had owned a team that I'd raced for. It was a American billionaire and lived in New York, and racing was his sort of side hobby. And but he kind of backed my vision to try and create the most rock and roll, sexy Formula One team, really, and incorporate that fashion world, that music world, the attitude of the music world with the style of the fashion world, really combined into a car team. And we sadly got outbid by British American Tobacco, and the team became the BAR Honda Formula One team that still exists right now. But it really gave me the confidence that it was possible to achieve such dreams, which had huge kind of financial tags attached to them, if I got the right people in the same room together. So Gumball for me was that way I could get those people in the room. So that was really the foundation for it, really, knowing that I'd got some really powerful contacts and friends around the world, even my friends that I'd made as a teenager from skateboarding, really, the likes of Johnny Knoxville and Spike Jones and Jeff Tremaine and Tony Hawk, and these guys that are doing incredibly well in creative worlds. And when I was at college, I was the same year as, same era, same period as people like Alexander McQueen and Stella McCartney and John Galliano, who's head of Christian Dior, was my tutor for a while. So it was sort of me realizing that I'd got a lot of very influential friends and people that I'd met over the years. If I put them all together, they'd help create something for me, really. Yeah, I've always been into cars. I think my initial kind of interest or passion was probably fueled from my grandfather taking me to see a Formula One race when I was probably about 3 or 4 years old. And I remember I grew up in the Midlands, and I remember going to see the Race of Champions in Birmingham through the streets once, and they obviously had an impact on me. My parents actually aren't into cars really in the slightest, and my father's never had a car, so he's always had motorbikes, and so it's obviously skipped a little generation. And I said I started racing cars when I was about 17, 18, and yeah, I've got a huge passion for cars, but it's also, I'm fascinated by design and creativity and style, and if I can kind of combine those elements into the Gumball, then that's what I'm trying to do, really. My first car was, well, realistically, my first car was I learnt to drive in a Morris Minor, which was my mum's car, but I then moved on to, I had a 1972 Alfa Romeo 2000 GTV, and very soon after a Lotus Esprit, which I managed to spend all of a student loan on buying. The event itself has changed. It's just kind of evolved over the years. It hasn't really intended to change. It just sort of grows up a little bit each time, I think. The first year's event was really a little adventure into the unknown. I didn't even realize if anybody would enjoy it. I didn't know the press were going to write about it. And yet we came out of that first rally, 3,000-mile drive around Europe in April '99 with 55 cars. And we ended up getting on the mention on the cover of GQ in about 6 different languages. And we got in about 500 magazines in a 6-month period. And we started getting to our tiny little Notting Hill office. We started getting sackloads of fan mail as well. This was, even '99 was slightly pre-internet days. And so the post was still kind of like that way that the public kind of expressed their enthusiasm for Gumball, really. And we had people writing in for stickers and T-shirts and baseball caps, and we didn't really even make anything back then. So there was obvious, from that first rally, there was obvious public interest in it. And that's just kind of expanded every year since, and the event's really gone from something that was quite underground and really just enjoyed by the drivers and read about by the media. It's transformed sort of full circle now, that hopefully it's still enjoyed by the drivers, but the public also can watch it as it happens. And as has been witnessed the last couple of years, where we've had over 1 million people at some of the checkpoints, and you know, they're cheering the cars in, and it's obviously televised now and everything. So yeah, it's become slightly more of a public event. Getting to the 9th year of the rally and the first year that fastcar actually make an appearance is a bit sad, really, considering their title is fastcar, and obviously they're into cars and written about the Gumball in varying degrees in the past. But yeah, it was great to have them on board, and a police car style was a good way to go. I was just sad that they didn't make the whole rally. Fastcar guys entered the rally in a great style and great spirit, and it'd be great to have them back again, and hopefully the 10th anniversary year they can do the whole rally. My favourite cars that have ever done the rally are probably, obviously, some of the real true supercars. I absolutely love, as anybody does, really. We've had a McLaren F1 LM, which is only 6 of them made in the world. They're about £1 million+ pounds, and just to see one on the road is pretty exciting and pretty insane, really. But equally, I do like it when people kind of enter something that you wouldn't quite expect on the rally. So certainly any of the older cars or the custom cars. The Rolls-Royce Phantom this year, which was completely customized, was very cool. But equally, some of the really eccentric things. I've liked the ambulance. We had that the first year. The ice cream van was a definite winner. I think buying a car for £200 on eBay, like the Citroen 2CV, was definitely showing that the rally is not just about having a lot of money and having to have the McLaren F1 or the Enzo or whatever. And I also like a lot of old American cars, so it's been really good. We had the guys from the Darkness do the rally a couple of years ago in Pontiac GTOs, and we've had a Cadillac Eldorado from 1970, which I thought was very cool. Every year has its dodgy and scary moments, but obviously every true scary moment for me is when I hear news come through that there's an accident, because you obviously don't know how bad it is, and you never want to hear that phone call, whether you're in whatever sport you're in. Whenever you get that phone call through that there's an accident has happened, it's something, you know, you got to kind of, it takes suddenly the fun that you're probably having at that time is suddenly completely wiped away from you, and you know you got to deal with something pretty serious. And so we've had that a few times. You know, the first time I think we had a pretty serious crash was in the rally in 2001 in Russia. Touched a bit of wood. Obviously the drivers were absolutely fine, and a little white mangled Ferrari was left on the roadside, and they carried on and hitched the rest of the rally round. The Moroccan Gumball in 2004 seemed to have its fair share of thrills and spills, and again, fortunately, people were not injured. So, but a few cars seemed to come off the road, and you know, it's a combination of adrenaline on the rally and the fact that people haven't driven on these roads before, and you know, road conditions are probably not the best always in some of these places, and just kind of the sheer endurance factor. There's an inevitability that there's going to be a few incidents every year. I mean, we just need to kind of limit that as much as we can, and I think that's something, because obviously we had a bad accident on the rally this year, then I think we address it even more in the future, and maybe we'll cut down the endurance factor a little bit, and obviously where the roads are perhaps not the best conditions, then we'll have police convoys and escorts, and you know, just react to the environment as best we can. The scary moments on the rally aren't always just limited to to accidents going on. The whole logistics of putting on the rally is at times quite causes some scary and unforeseeable kind of scenarios. I mean, on last year's rally, the one that started in London, finished in Los Angeles, we took off from Bangkok to fly to Utah, and we had to touch down in the United States, in Tokyo, on the way to the United States, and we only managed to take off in our little window of opportunity to take off. We made it by about 60 seconds or 120 seconds or something at most. And had we not been able to take off then the plane would have been grounded for another 12 hours, which would have meant we'd have missed the whole stage in the US. And things like that are pretty scary when you're behind the scenes, because, you know, the amount of time, money, energy, and the amount of annoyed participants would be, and the amount of crowds waiting with nothing coming, and everything. Just, you know, we're on such a tight time frame to put all this on in 8 days that one little hiccup, like an aeroplane not taking off on time or whatever, can throw the whole rally out. So there's a lot of dramas behind the scenes, as you can imagine, in any large-scale event like this. We tried to get Burt Reynolds on the rally a few years ago. I always thought he'd be a great one because of obviously his Cannonball Run fame in the 70s. Next year's rally being our 10th anniversary, we're trying to really make it a bit of a wish list of drivers and key celebs from around the world. I think there's no doubt that an Angelina or Brad would be the biggest, as they are with anything they do. But I'm quite excited. We've got some people that really are sort of knocking on the door wanting to enter next year, like Jackie Chan. I think would be really funny. He's another original Cannonball Run film star and pretty much a legend the world over. I only really want some sort of celebs if they're genuinely into it, instead of just booking someone to drive in this that might not really enjoy it. But you know, we want that kind of person that's up for a real adventure and doesn't really mind sort of mucking in and sleeping on the roadside one night if their car breaks down. You don't want too many prima donnas on it. So obviously if Steve McQueen was around, someone like that, you know. We've really, Gumball's grown over the years into exploring the other interests that we've got, you know, from making our own films to producing our own clothing label. So, you know, I think in the next 10 years, it's very much our intention to build the Gumball brand into all these other sort of activities that we enjoy, really. Most of them sort of creative pursuits, but some of them much more business orientated. We've actually got a vast amount, or 20 windmills across Scandinavia and Germany now. So Gumball's producing its own electricity, its own environmentally friendly electricity as well. So, but really it's to build a brand that we could kind of put into anything. You know, the thought of having Gumball Airline or Gumball Hotels or you know, Gumball credit cards or Gumball mobile phones is very much in the similar vein to a brand like Virgin was in the early 70s and has developed over the years. So hopefully a bit of a true lifestyle brand, but one with a bit of attitude. And if we continue to do the annual rally, then we continue to have this very unique factor that most global brands don't have. It seems that this year is the wave of everyone being environmentally aware, and so next year we're going to try as much as we can to have as many biodiesel, hybrids, electric cars actually participating in the rally, and we'll offset our own carbon footprint 100% as well. So one of the first cars we've got entered so far for next year's event is called a Tesla, which is electric, and so that'll be interesting. It'll be the first time an electric car will have gone on such an adventure. So we'll see how it fares. I mean, it's just a question of how far they can go on one battery, but if they can, obviously it's something that all those car manufacturers are working on, increasing their battery life between being recharged. I think at the moment they can go about 3 hours, 4 hours, something like that, which is just about enough. We don't have any checkpoints that are further than that apart, so in theory they could drive to every checkpoint and recharge for a little bit and then carry on going. So, but yeah, we'll also have the Venturi Fetish, which looks very much like a Bugatti Veyron, and it's about 370,000 euros, so it's not cheap. But it will be interesting because these silent supercars will be the first anyone's really seen them.